The second and final season of Human Resources has just been released on Netflix, and with its short life on the platform, it's probably going to be remembered as the show that took a little too long to come out, following the initial success of Big Mouth. Branching out of the Big Mouth universe, Season 2 of the show allowed us to see a bit of the world of the monsters that we've come to grow familiar with over the course of the past couple of years. With guest appearances from the likes of Miley, Cyrus and Florence Pugh, this season did manage to pull in the names. So with that, I thought I'd recap, break down, and explain how this show ended, whilst also giving my opinion on it and the state of the Big Mouth show. So let's get into it. Here is Human Resources Season 2 review and ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Before I get into this, I just want to get a feel for what other people are thinking. Do you think that this show and even Big Mouth is what it used to be? Or do you feel as though the show just doesn't quite have its place anymore, or even land with the impact that it used to? I'll be sharing my opinion in the latter part of the video, so comment yours below. The ending. This season of the show was mainly focused on love, hate, grief, and learning to get through it. For example, the two main stories that we had were focused on a character called Sarah who was learning to live without her mother following her death, and compressing her memories as she felt guilty due to not being able to say goodbye. Plus, we also had Rochelle choosing hate over love, which allowed us to see her as a hate worm instead of a love bug. I found the story that was involving Sarah to be the most enjoyable one that was present in this season of the show. I thought Miley Cyrus as Van the Logic Rock was actually quite a good casting, and I thought that she voiced her role well. Even Sarah, who was played by Florence Pugh. They both delivered great performances, and it was definitely the most interesting story. Their story ultimately ended up rounding off with Sarah coming to terms with the fact that she didn't need to feel guilty over what happened, and that she could let her father into her heart and mind as she was suffering with the exact same thing that he was. So if they were together, they would be able to help one another. So it was quite a wholesome story. With regards to Rochelle and her story, we saw her choosing hate over love following Dante breaking up with her and being jealous of Pete the Logic Rock. She spent the entirety of the season adopting hatred and passing it on to her clients, which we saw was ultimately making their lives worse. It was only during the finale of the season that we saw that General Malice, a monster that Rochelle was following, took over the celebrations and held everybody hostage with the intention of causing chaos for the humans, as they weren't able to control their emotions. This was where she saw that love and hope was going to enable her to be able to save the day, ultimately allowing her to change back to a love bug whilst also accepting herself for who she was and channeling that positive energy. With the musical number being present at the end, it did feel like a somewhat resolution and an ending for the show, considering that they were all standing there together. But it has been said that the story of Season 2 of Human Resources will flow seamlessly into the two final seasons of Big Mouth, so I feel as though it was never going to feel like a harsh, abrupt end, because this show is merely an extension. I thought there were some good moments in Season 2, such as Montel choosing to be a shame wizard instead of a hormone monster, and it causing some controversy. Most of Pete's appearances too, because he's definitely one of the funniest characters. I also enjoyed Emmy working closely with Sal, as it was quite a touching story, and also the musical numbers. They've become a staple part of both Big Mouth and Human Resources, and they most certainly didn't disappoint this time round. Even though Maurice and Connie were in this season of the show, I didn't feel as though they were a large contributing factor to the main plot, which was an interesting choice. They were kind of just floating around and popping up in the side quests that were going on. I personally didn't mind that, as it allowed the other characters and cast members to shine. Answering the first question. So to answer if I feel Big Mouth or Human Resources has lost something that maybe it once had, I kind of feel like it has. It was once a show that I used to look forward to watching every year that it was released. As you can see, I've covered the show since Season 1, so I was a huge fan. But I found myself, especially in the more recent seasons, feeling as though I haven't cared for it as much as I once did, or even laughing out loud as much as I used to. Don't get me wrong, there are still some great moments and gags, such as in this season of Human Resources. The what's going on in that noggin was something that made me laugh repeatedly, but it's a lot rarer now. My thinking behind that is mainly because I feel like we've just seen it all before. When Big Mouth first launched onto the scene, it really did push its boundaries, and it was surprising that it was even allowed to be on TV with the graphic nature that it had, and also the type of humor that it was leaning into. Whereas now, I feel like even as a society, on a widespread scale, we're almost coming out the other side of that type of humour. Plus, that kind of humour and out there views that push the boundaries is almost way more accessible now due to social media apps. So you don't only consume that type of humour in the form of a TV show. I feel Big Mouth and Human Resources would have definitely had a longer life if it had have came out maybe a few years prior to its actual release, due to it being more appropriate for the time and the humour not feeling as tired. It would have competed in the South Park, Family Guy and Brickleberry space and held its own. I also feel as though a Human Resources spin-off show wasn't that necessary and could have actually killed the appetite slightly, as I feel the creatures do most definitely work a lot better in the capacity of the parent show, where there's the balance of the human characters such as Nick and Andrew, the constant of Maurice and Connie, and then the seasonal creature focusing on an emotion. I also feel I would have loved for the show to have had an approach where we actually saw them age and go through school. Think, Big Mouth is going to be finishing on season 8 of the show. We could have grown with these characters, which I think would have been a real one-of-a-kind experience with an animated show. Plus, there are also so many different emotions that people feel when they're growing up. Rather than in a micro period of their life, we could have had it on a macro scale and seen them come out the other side and hit college. Characters being the same works with the likes of The Simpsons and Family Guy because they have 30 odd episodes in a season and they don't really follow a consistent narrative that flows into the next episode, whereas Big Mouth and Human Resources did, so I feel that could have actually helped with keeping the show fresh. I do still enjoy Big Mouth and will watch every year that it comes out. I just find that I don't get that same feeling that I once did, which is a shame. Maybe that's just me getting older, or maybe it's the humour and the fact that it just doesn't quite land these days. But regardless, the early seasons of Big Mouth will stay with me and I'll remember the good times that I had when watching them. Human Resources, not so much. With Human Resources coming to a close, I don't think that this is necessarily going to be a show that's going to be missed that much. But with Big Mouth, I think it will. With 2 more seasons to come and it coming to an end next year, I'm intrigued to see how the soon-to-be longest-running animated show in Netflix's history will be drawing to a close. I'm looking forward to seeing how it does. So, there you have it, Human Resources Season 2 review and ending explained. If you want to see more videos such as endings explained, theories and predictions and character breakdowns, then click on the I button. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @BrainPilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of Human Resources? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.